about getting dressed. Sounds simple, right? But here's the thing. Standing in my closet, picking a top, I realized this isn't just about clothes anymore. It's about identity. It's about who I am today versus who I was versus who I want to be. And suddenly, midlife style feels less like a wardrobe choice and more like a personal negotiation. I remember my 20s. Style meant effort and sometimes suffering. We all remember that. Jeans that were probably way too tight and pinched a little, heels that screamed, tops that refused to breathe. I thought I had to perform all the time with my friends, with family, even just for myself in the mirror. But here's what's funny. My mid to late 20s, they weren't power career fashion years. They were 90s maternity fashion years. And that, that is a whole episode for another day. Let's just say elastic pants, elastic panels, and empire waists were doing the heavy lifting. Comfort wasn't a trend, it was survival. And honestly, I leaned into it because I had to. I was married, a stay-at-home wife, living 1,500 miles away from home in a Navy-based town where everything felt temporary. The housing, the friendships, the sense of belonging. And when you're that far from home, sometimes your clothes become the only familiar thing in the room. And then came my 30s. The early 2000s, mom style. And fashion became kind of like a checklist. Do I have the right jeans, the practical shoes, the top says that I care, but not too much, slightly too long denim skirts, layered tanks under cardigans, sensible flats for school drop-offs and grocery runs. I wasn't dressing for attention anymore. I was dressing for function. Even for invisibility sometimes, for blending in with the other moms in the parking lot. And even then, I was still performing. I wanted to look like I had it together. Like I wasn't lonely. Like I was still the girl I used to be. And that was then. And now, midlife feels different. Now my closet isn't about survival or proving or blending in. Now it's a conversation. Can I breathe in this? Can I move in this? Does this feel like the woman I've become, not the one who is trying to hold everything together? And the wild part, choosing for myself feels more powerful than any trend I ever chased. And here's the kicker. Sometimes I catch myself thinking, did I look like a 90s sitcom extra? And then I really think about it and I say, yes, I did. Somewhere along the way, my closet stopped being about clothes and started being a check-in. Not dramatic, not emotional, just quietly revealing. I open the door, I run my hand across the hangers, and I couldn't help but think, when did this become less about what's in and more about what's honest? There are mornings when something fits perfectly. The zipper glides up, the fabric lays right, the mirror doesn't argue, and still something feels off. Not wrong, just not aligned. And that word aligned feels new. Because back in our 20s, if it fit and it was fashionable, we wore it. That was the question, that was the equation. In our 30s, if it was practical and acceptable for the life we were living, we wore it. That was survival. But now there's a pause, a tiny breath before the decision. Does this represent how I feel today? Does this support the life I'm actually living? Does this feel like the woman I've become, not the woman who I was trying to be? And I couldn't help but wonder, when did self-trust start mattering more than approval? Midlife sharpens your instincts. You can feel when something is performative. You can feel when something is forced. And you can feel when you're dressing for an old version of yourself. And the awareness doesn't feel critical. It feels kind, like you're finally listening to yourself. Clothes become less about creating an image and more about reinforcing an identity. Not loudly, not dramatically, just consistently. Choosing the sweater that feels steady, the jeans that let you move, the shoes that carry you through your actual day. And maybe that sounds small, but I couldn't help but think small choices repeated daily shape life. Maybe the closet is simply the first place we practice alignment. And I keep coming back to this word, edit. Not reinvent, not overhaul, not start over, edit. And I can't help but wonder, what if midlife isn't about becoming someone new at all? What if it's about revealing who was there all along? Because for years, we added roles, we added responsibilities, we added expectations, our own and everyone else's. We added layers, and some of those layers were necessary. Some were protective, some helped us survive. But now we're allowed to look at those layers and ask, do I still need this? Do I still need to impress? Do I still need to prove? Do I still need to carry this version of myself? Editing doesn't mean rejecting your past. It means honoring it and then deciding what continues forward. It's the quiet confidence of saying, that served me then, this serves me now. And I couldn't help but notice editing feels lighter than adding ever did. There's less pressure, there's less urgency, there's less comparison. Midlife style for me isn't about chasing youth. It isn't about fighting change. It's about choosing pieces that feel grounded, pieces that don't argue with my body, pieces that don't compete with my energy, pieces that support my life instead of demanding attention. And I think that applies to more than just clothes. It applies to conversations, to commitments, to the way we spend our time. Editing becomes a philosophy. Keep what feels aligned, release what feels forced, trust what feels steady. And that kind of clarity, it doesn't scream, it doesn't trend, it just simply stands. So maybe the real transformation of midlife isn't visible at all. Maybe it's internal. Maybe it's the shift from asking, how do I look, to asking, how do I feel? Maybe it's the shift from seeking applause to seeking peace. And I couldn't help but wonder, what if clarity is the most powerful thing we gain in this season of life? Not louder style, not bigger statements. And hey, if that's what you want to do, then go for it. But just sharper self-awareness. Midlife doesn't feel dramatic to me on most days, but it does feel deliberate. It feels like waking up one day and realizing you no longer need to audition for your own life. You just live it. You choose it. You wear what supports it. And if you're standing in your closet right now, coffee in hand, a little unsure, a little curious, maybe the question isn't, what should I wear? Maybe the question is, what feels true today? Because we are not fading. We are refining. We're not disappearing. We're distilling. And maybe, just maybe, this version of us isn't smaller. It's clearer. And clarity looks good on us.